One of the most critical decisions to make when you start writing is to find an organizational structure that suits your essay. In my experience, I find that most high school students mistakenly believe that there is only one choice, the 5-paragraph essay. You know, the one where you have a broad to specific introduction stating your thesis, 3 body paragraphs that develop it, then a specific to broad conclusion that restates the thesis? Yes, I thought that would sound familiar. While this structure can work just fine for an analysis or argument paper, it definitely isn't your best choice for a college application essay. The 5-paragraph essay is an example of what is known as the deductive structure. You start with providing the reader your thesis, and then you prove it. In a personal narrative such as a college application essay, however, you actually may be better off putting your thesis statement at the end of your essay. This organizational structure, known as the inductive pattern, means that you are proving your point throughout the essay, with examples that lead toward your thesis. I once heard the inductive pattern described in an analogy that helps me to remember it. Think of the process of induction as standing behind someone in line at the grocery store checkout. Look at the items in their cart. If you see diapers, infant formula, and a value pack of baby wipes, you can use that evidence to guess that the shopper is a parent of an infant. Similarly, with an inductive essay, you provide the reader with pieces of evidence throughout that point toward the takeaway. Your thesis does not have to be stated as overtly as it might be in an argumentative essay. You shouldn't sound as if you are trying too hard to drive the point home. We can see an example of this in the sample essay from Chapter 3. Can you find where the writer states his thesis? That's it. It's actually a combination of 3 short sentences. But looking back, I can point to that day as a turning point. I realized that I was not trapped, not by my lack of transportation, not by being poor. I had taken a chance to change my situation, and, as a result, things got better. An inductive pattern works better with personal narrative because you are leading the reader toward the takeaway. It is a process of revelation, both for the writer and for the reader. This can be very powerful and effective. Another organizational technique we can see in this sample is a non-linear narrative. You notice that the essay begins in the moment. As we learned in the movie on Starting Out Strong, it works well to begin at a dramatic point of the narrative. From this point, the narrative then jumps back in time to what brought the writer to that dramatic moment. The writer steps back and explains the circumstances leading up to that situation. From this point forward, the writer follows a linear chronology. But notice that the writer does not feel obligated to tell the entire story beginning to end. For example, he never explains how the woman picked him up after the grocery shopping trip and dropped him off back at home. That's not important in terms of the narrative. But the writer breaks from the chronology to state the thesis, and then closes out the essay by jumping forward in time to a week later when he has his bike. The events in between are not important to the story. The writer bridges into them with the transitional phrase, "the next week." Notice here, too, what the writer does in the conclusion. He jumps ahead in time by a week, but he also mentions the squashed armadillo from the opening moment of the essay. This kind of repeated reference brings the essay full circle. Also, by including the additional detail of the smell being gone and the wind blowing in a different direction, he is able to allude to a positive change in his circumstances. This reinforces his thesis and shows a progression in the essay, something that expresses the growth he experienced through this best bad decision. So with those ideas in mind, you can start thinking about how you want to structure your own narrative. Depending on the nature of your prompt, not all of these suggestions will work for you. But as you watch the next few movies in this section, you should be able to find additional advice that you can apply as you begin your own writing process.